Welcome back to the channel. My name's Tom, and today I'm taking a look at one of the largest classic video game arcades in the world and my personal favorite arcade. This is Funspot in Laconia, New Hampshire. Not to be confused with the Funspot amusement parks in Florida and Georgia. As far as I know, this Funspot has no relation to them. This Funspot, the original Funspot, was founded in 1952 as the Weir Sports Center and was located down by Weir's Beach across the street from the Full Moon Arcade, which I did a video on a few months ago. It moved to this location in 1964 and initially consisted of a mini golf course called the Landmarks of New Hampshire. A billiards room was added in 1965, and I believe the video game started to take over sometime in the 70s. As you can see, they claim to be the largest arcade in the world, which they were named by Guinness World Records back in 2008. I did some research into that, though. It appears that they are the largest arcade by size, so I guess the size of the building is the largest. However, the Galloping Ghost Arcade in Illinois claims to have the most arcade machines of any one arcade. So whether this is still technically the largest arcade in the world, I guess is up for debate. But either way, it's pretty darn big. I first came here sometime back in the early 80s while on summer vacation with my family, and then came back almost every summer up until the early 90s. The amazing thing is this place really hasn't changed all that much since then, and some of the games I played back then are still here today. And I don't just mean the same games, though. I mean the same machines, which kind of blows my mind. So now, come along with me as I take a look around, play a few games, and do my best to relive my childhood. And don't forget, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell. And if you want to see more videos like this, please let me know. Thanks. Now here's something that you don't see every day. This is a kiddie ride called the Seascape. It's from 1953, and I think this is probably one of the oldest operational kiddie rides I've ever seen. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this mural here might be from Storybook Forest, which was here back in the 70s and 80s. It was actually next door. It's since been torn down, but I think that might be where that's from. Here's some more amazing vintage kiddie rides. We got the Flintstones. I would guess that's from the 60s or 70s. And then that motorcycle there looks very much from the 70s. Unlike a lot of other arcades I've been to, the Funspot has more vintage machines than modern machines. And this is definitely a classic. This is The Simpsons. It's seen better days, though. The screen looks a little bit faded. And that's the problem with some of the machines here. Because they are so old, a lot of them are, 30, 40, almost 50 years old. They are starting to show their age. And some of them don't work, and I understand that, you know, they take a lot of upkeep. They're very expensive to maintain. They're very complicated. So I definitely understand why they are like they are, but it is a little bit disappointing sometimes to see that, you know, the game I really wanted to play just isn't operational. And yes, they still use tokens. They do not use that card system that a lot of the modern arcades use. And I like that because I think using tokens gives you a much more authentic experience. You know, you get the sound of the token clinking as it goes in the machine, which is way more satisfying than just swiping our card. Now, they don't just have video games. They also have a ton of pinball machines. These ones here on this level, though, I think are the more modern machines for the most part. Like the Mandalorian there, that is very new. That's probably within the last few years. Any of these that have screens on them like that, I think are fairly modern. Got Jurassic Park, Stranger Things, that's definitely modern. Addams Family, that might be from the 90s. And then the rest of these, I'm honestly not sure when they're from. I do like pinball, but I haven't played a lot of pinball, so I'm not really familiar with all the titles. And I sometimes have difficulty determining when these machines are from. I would say the ones without the screens are most likely from the 90s and earlier. And they've also got a bowling alley, which was apparently added in 1988, even though I thought it was here earlier than that, but I guess I was wrong. And then over here on the right is the D.A. Long Tavern, which has a few more games in it. I would assume, though, that kids are probably not allowed in here. At least not without a parent. I would guess that these pinball machines are almost certainly from the 70s. You got the Harlem Globetrotters, Playboy, and Kiss, and they look very 70s to me. This is one of the older pinball machines they have. This is Swing Along by Gottlieb, and it's from 1963, and it still works for the most part. Right there? This one? Yep. All right, thanks. Yes. And in case you were wondering, I was doing this one-handed. One hand was on the right flipper, and the left hand was holding the camera, so I probably wasn't playing the best I could. Oh, there we go. Oh, left flipper's not working. Now let's head up to the third floor, which is where most of the classic arcade machines are located. These are what they call cocktail machines, and basically, as you can see, they're sit-down arcades, usually with 2 players. And from my experience, you would normally see these like in a bar or a restaurant for the most part. Pretty much all of the games on this level, as far as I know, are part of the American Classic Arcade Museum, which is a part of Funspot. And from what I've read, they only allow machines that are from 1989 or earlier. And most of them, or at least a lot of them, are donated to the museum. Some of these I think are probably just on loan, so they're not actually owned by Funspot. And they do swap out machines from time to time. I've read that they have something like 600 machines, but that only about 300 of them are ever on the floor. And also, I was here back in 2021, and there were some machines back then that are not here today. This one's called Night Stalker, and I've never seen this one before. It's kind of interesting, though. You drive, obviously, but then you also have a gun. I don't think I've ever seen one like that before. Here's one I don't see too often. This is a Neo Geo MVS, and basically it has 4 different games on it, which you can swap out, kind of like the Nintendo Play Choice 10. And they actually did a mini version of that you can actually still buy on Amazon today. Over here on the left, this is a Coleco Atom, which was actually an expansion to the ColecoVision game system, which pretty much turned it into a computer, kind of like the Commodore 64. And I love how they have that little Windows 95 sticker on there. That's definitely not supposed to be there. And then this is the actual ColecoVision, which was a major competitor to the Atari 2600 back in the day. I remember my friend up the street had one of these, and it just seemed so much better than our Atari 2600, which was honestly pretty terrible. So there's the printer and the disk drive for the Coleco Atom, and a bunch of games there on the bottom. Pretty cool. If I were to guess, I would say this is probably the oldest pinball machine here. This one's called Stop and Go. I tried looking it up online, and I only was able to find later versions of this, which were from the 60s, but this one seems much older than the 60s to me. And then this is the largest pinball machine in the world. This is Hercules. It's kind of hard to tell from the video, but this thing is enormous. It's at least, I would guess, like 1.5 times the size of a normal pinball machine. Sadly, it was out of order, so I couldn't play it even if I wanted to. But it is massive. And just for size comparison, here's my hand on the machine. And then growing up, this was probably in my top 5 favorite video games of all time, Afterburner by Sega, and especially this version of it where you sit in it and the whole thing moves. And in just a few seconds, I'll play a little bit of the game. Just a heads up though, on the games that I filmed myself playing, I used my GoPro on my chest so I could use both hands. Sadly, the GoPro doesn't do quite as well in low light as the DJI Pocket 3 I'm using right now. my defense, I never said I was any good at any of these games. So now let's play a little bit of Crazy Taxi.
Hey, come on over, have some fun. Go ahead and pick car and driver. All right, let's get it on. It's not this crazy, buddy. I got ready. Here we go. Someone off, or you're gonna run out of time. Yeah, just a second. Yeah, I know.
They've also got a few games in display cases like this, and I'm not sure exactly why. I don't know if they're more valuable or they're rarer, but this one is called Jump Bug, and it's from 1981. And I am not familiar with that game. Alright, so now let's officially head into the American Classic Arcade Museum. And this is without a doubt where they have the best machines, the most classic machines, obviously. Now here's a controversial classic. This is Death Race from 1976. And my understanding is this was one of the first games ever where you actually would kill something that looked like a human. So that really freaked out a lot of people. Nowadays, that would be considered a pretty tame game, I think. I would have loved to have played all of these games, but if I did, this would have ended up being like an 8-hour video, which I don't think anybody would have wanted to see. But there are some amazing games here that I've honestly never heard of, but they look really cool. So on the second floor, we saw Funspot's more modern pinball machines. And up here on the third floor, they have this whole wall of pinball machines that are mainly from, I would guess, the 70s, possibly some in the late 60s, and maybe into the early 80s. But these are really cool. And I would love to have a pinball machine someday. They're just really expensive. Multiple thousands of dollars. So now let's play a quick game of Bally's Paragon from 1979.
Fireball awaits you.
As I mentioned earlier, a lot of these machines are just not working. This is one of my favorite arcade games of all time, Star Wars by Atari. Sadly, this one is out of order, but I'm pretty sure I played that exact machine back in the 80s when I was here. And I would love to own one of those, honestly. Battlezone, that's another classic. That also seemed to be out of order. Rolling Thunder. I've played a few games of that over the years. Here's some real classics. Dig Dug, Centipede, Millipede. Those are the ones that I usually think of when I think of classic arcade games. Same with Paperboy, even though I was never good at any of them. And this is a game called Road Blasters from 1987. This was actually filmed back in 2021, and I don't think this game is there anymore. At least I didn't see it, but I had the footage, so I figured, hey, let's take a quick look. And now here's Star Wars Arcade, but the sit-down version. This one is working, and I'll play it in a second here. The only problem with this one is the yoke is out of alignment, so I had to hold it at an angle just to go straight. So that could be worked on, but other than that, it's still in pretty good condition.
Good try, standing by.
That game is really hard. This is Choplifter by Sega, and I remember I used to play that a lot on the Sega Master System. And it looks a lot like it does on the Master System, believe it or not. So as I'm looking at these machines here, let me know which ones are your favorites in the comments. And if anybody's interested, someday I could do a live stream where I play a bunch of these games using an emulator. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments as well. And here's Pong. This is not the oldest game here, but it's got to be one of the oldest. This is from 1972. So this is 52 years old, believe it or not. That is crazy. And here's Video Pinball by Atari. And I don't know for a fact, but I would say this is probably one of the earliest so-called virtual pinball machines. I'm not aware of any earlier than that. This is another very popular game. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1989. And I believe Arcade 1-Up actually reproduced this as a mini arcade recently. And then another unquestionable classic, Asteroids. Not sure why this one is in the case, though. I think they have another one on the floor, actually, that is working. This is Computer Space from 1971. It's probably the oldest video game in their collection, I would guess. This was actually filmed in 2021, though. This game was not on the floor when I went this year in 2024. But again, I had the footage, so I figured I'd post it. And I think you'll agree that this looks very similar to Asteroids. Rampage, another classic. Here's Pole Position. And I don't know about you, but I love sit-down versions of games. It just makes them so much more fun for some reason. This is TX1 by Atari. Sadly, it's not working, but this is probably one of the best sit-down cabinets I've ever seen. It's actually got 3 screens, which back then in the 80s was very uncommon. This is Sega's Monaco GP. I actually had Super Monaco GP on the Sega Genesis, which looked much different than this. It was more of a first-person point of view. Another one of my favorite games of all time is Gauntlet and its many sequels. This is unusual, though. This is a 2-player version of Gauntlet. Most of the Gauntlets you'll see in arcades are 4-player. So this one is apparently very rare, which would explain why it's under the glass like that. So now here's the original Gauntlet, and I love this game. Gauntlet and Gauntlet 2 are definitely my favorites. So let's play a quick game of each.
Treasure 100 points. Save keys to open doors. Help, your life force is running out.
And here's Gauntlet 2, which is very similar to Gauntlet 1. I know I keep saying this, but Operation Wolf is also one of my favorites of all time. And it's mainly because of the gun you use. And this was a little bit hard to film, but I did my best to get some footage of me playing this one. Now let's give Cubert a try. I didn't play this one back in the 80s too often, so I'm not very good at it, just like most of the other games. This one's called Indy 4. Sadly, it is out of order, but I could see this one being a lot of fun to play, especially if you've got 4 players. This looks to be the Pac-Man section. There were so many different Pac-Man games out there, it's kind of ridiculous. It's amazing how popular he was back in the early to mid-'80s. I've been a fan of Zaxxon since the early 80s, but I don't think I've ever played Super Zaxxon. As a huge Star Wars and Star Trek fan, I don't know how I missed this one. I've never heard of this. This is Star Trek, obviously, and it looks a lot like the Star Wars arcade game that we played earlier. Here's Fire Truck, and I remember playing this one back in the day. The cool thing about this was you could play as the driver of the ladder. So you would move the ladder on the back, and then somebody else would actually drive the fire truck. Another game I played a lot of back in the 80s was Zaxxon. However, it wasn't in the arcade, it was actually on my Commodore 64. So let's try it out. Here's a working version of that jump bug game we saw earlier. So I'm really not sure why some games go into the display cases and others don't. This cabinet is really cool. This is Wacko, and you can see everything's at an angle. I don't think I've ever seen another arcade cabinet like that before. And then here's Seawolf, and I remember I used to love this just because of the periscope. Little things like that made these games so much more interesting, especially when I was a kid. If you're into classic video games like I am, you've probably heard of the documentary called The King of Kong, which was a documentary from 2007, and part of it was actually filmed here. And one of the main stars of that documentary was Billy Mitchell, who was the champion of Donkey Kong. And I think this is the actual machine he played on, as far as I know. So let's see if I can break his record. Ah, so close. And we've got the original Mario Brothers game, long before it was Super Mario Brothers. And I have to say, this is not my favorite game. I'm used to the Super Mario Brothers games. But again, let's give it a try. And that's Punch-Out, before it was Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. This is a Nintendo Play Choice 10, which actually played 10 different games, and I think it's got little cartridges in them, which you can swap out. Alright, so now we're technically outside of the American Classic Arcade Museum at Funspot, but they do have some other classic arcade games up here. For example, here's a sit-down version of Outrun by Sega. Another classic, without question. And I didn't play a lot of this in the arcade, but I did play this on my Sega Master System, and then I think I also had it on the Genesis. This is technically not a video game. This is an electromechanical game. It's called Monte Carlo. I would guess that's probably from the 60s. Now let's take a look at their mini golf course. The mini golf course originally opened in 1964, but it was outside. I think these obstacles are, for the most part, original from 1964. I could be wrong, but I think a lot of them are. The course was moved inside back in 2015. This is a church of some sort, but I don't know which specific church it's supposed to be. I didn't see a sign saying what it was. This is Waldo the Whale. And then this is the Covered Bridge in Jackson, New Hampshire. This is supposed to be the Branch School, which is a one-room schoolhouse in West Campton, New Hampshire. And I love looking inside these little houses like this. It's just so fascinating. This is a totem pole, but I'm not sure if that's supposed to represent an actual totem pole that exists in New Hampshire. And then this is a birdhouse, apparently for a kind of bird called a purple martin. Here's a little barn we can look inside. And I'm not sure if this is based on an actual barn somewhere. This is the West Alton train station in Alton, New Hampshire. I think this is just a random outhouse. This is a recreation of an actual sap house in West Plymouth, New Hampshire. And if you don't know, a sap house is basically where they make maple syrup. Now, this is the only one I've actually seen in real life. This is the North Conway Railroad Station in North Conway, New Hampshire. And if you ever drive through North Conway, it's right on the side of the road. You can't really miss it. This is obviously a castle, but I'm not sure which one it actually is because I did not see a plaque up for this one. I might have missed it, though. And this is Hansel and Gretel from Storybook Forest, which was here from, as it says, 1976 to 1984. So I'm not sure if this was actually part of the golf course when it opened in '64, or if this was actually taken from Storybook Forest after it closed. This one is based on the Mount Washington, which is a ship on Lake Winnipesaukee that, you know, takes passengers around the lake. This looks nothing like the Mount Washington, though. It's highly stylized, I'll say. And then this is one of the trains from the Mount Washington Cog Railway. I would love to do a video there someday, but it's really expensive. I think the tickets are over $100, and I don't know if anybody would watch the video. So if you want to see a video of me going up Mount Washington on one of these Cog Railway trains, let me know. They've also got a little gift shop here. The weird thing about this gift shop is, though, there was nobody staffing it. I actually had to go down to the second floor by the bowling alley to ask for somebody to come up here with me, and then I was able to pick something out, and then I had to walk back down to the bowling alley to pay for it. So that was a little bit inconvenient, but not a big deal. And I did end up buying one of each of the coffee mugs. Alright, so now let's make our way down to the first floor. This is where they have most of their modern racing games, and they've got a lot of them.
He isn't in this one. Parker, let's go. Hurry, let's get one.
This is the Brag and Dragon, which is the only restaurant on the property as far as I know. But if you don't want to eat here, it's not a problem. There's plenty of other restaurants in the area. And if you're looking for a suggestion, I would highly recommend the Tamarack, which is right down the road. It's amazing. Here's all the prizes you can win from the games. And the one thing they had here that I really wanted was this Funspot glass, because as you know, I collect character glasses. But they wouldn't sell it to me. You had to play the games to win it, which I understand, but I really want one of those glasses. So if anybody knows where I can find one without actually playing the games, let me know. And of course, they've got skee-ball. So let's play a quick game. I would guess this is probably the oldest electromechanical game they have here. This is Shoot the Bear, and sadly it's out of service. And there you have it. That was the Funspot in Laconia, New Hampshire. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell. I've got a lot more videos coming up. And if you want to see more arcade videos, please let me know in the comments. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.